In our diverse societies, everybody can do their part. And we will not give in to fear, or start turning on each other. Or treating some people differently because of religion or race or background. That wouldn't just be a betrayal of our values, it would also feed ISIL's propaganda, their assertion. Which is absolutely false, that we must absolutely reject, that we are somehow at war with an entire religion. The United States could never be at war with any religion because America is made up of multiple religions. We're strengthened by people from every religion, including Muslim Americans. So I want to be as clear as I can on this. Prejudice and discrimination helps ISIL and undermines our national security. And so, even as we destroy ISIL on the battlefield, and we will destroy them, we will take back land that they are currently in. We will cut off their financing. We will hunt down their leadership. We will dismantle their networks and their supply lines, and we will ultimately destroy them. Even as we are in the process of doing that. We want to make sure that we don't lose our own values and our own principles. And we can all do our part by upholding the values of tolerance. And diversity and equality that help keep America strong. The United States will continue to lead this global coalition. We are intensifying our strategy on all fronts, with local partners on the ground. We are going to keep on rolling back ISIL in Iraq and in Syria. and take out more of their leaders and commanders so that they do not threaten us. And we will destroy this terrorist organization. And we'll keep working with our allies and partners for the opportunity and justice that helps defeat violent extremism. We'll keep standing up for the human rights and dignity of all people because that is contrary. To what these terrorists believe. That's part of how we defeat them. And I'm confident we will succeed. The hateful vision of an organization like ISIL is no match for the strength of nations and people around the world who are united to live in security and peace and in harmony. So with that, I'm going to take a couple of questions. We'll start with Angela Greelinkeen of Bloomberg. Question, thank you, Mr. President. You're scheduled to meet this week with President Olan in Washington to talk about stepping up efforts against ISIL even further. Given that Russia would be part of the coalition that France proposes. Have you seen any signs in the past couple days of Russia redirecting its military efforts in Syria to actually focus on ISIL? Are there any circumstances that you could see President Assad remaining in power? Even if only temporarily, if that's what it took to effectively have a broad alliance directed at ISIL? And finally, as you've said, the US won't work with Russia if their goal is to keep Assad in power. If that's the case, is defeating ISIL or destroying ISIL a realistic goal? President Obama, well, first of all, destroying ISIL is not only a realistic goal. We're going to get it done, and we're going to pursue it with every aspect of American power and with all the coalition partners that we've assembled. It's going to get done. It will be helpful if Russia directs its focus on ISIL, and I do think that as a consequence of ISIL claiming responsibility for bringing down their plane, there is an increasing awareness on the part of President Putin that ISIL poses a greater threat to them than anything else in the region. The question at this point is whether they can make the strategic adjustment. That allows them to be effective partners with us and the other 65 countries. Who are already part of the counter-ISIL campaign. And we don't know that yet. So far, over the last several weeks, when they started taking strikes in Syria. Their principal targets have been the moderate opposition that they felt threatened Assad. Their principal goal appeared to be if you follow the strikes. That they took to fortify the position of the Assad regime. And that does not add to our efforts against ISIL. In some ways, it strengthens it because ISIL is also fighting many of those groups that the Russians were hitting. When we were in Turkey, I discussed with President Putin, in a brief pull aside. His need to recognize that he needs to go after the people who killed Russian citizens. And those aren't the groups that they were currently hitting with strikes. So they're going to have to make an adjustment in terms of what they're prioritizing. More broadly, I've said this before, I said it to President Putin 5 years ago and I repeated it too. Him just a few days ago. The issue with Assad is not simply the way that he has treated his people. It's not just a human rights issues. It's not just a question of supporting. Somebody who has been ruthlessly dropping bombs on his own civilian populations. As a practical matter, it is not conceivable that Mr. Assad can regain legitimacy in a country in which a large majority of that country despises Assad. And will not stop fighting so long as he's in power, which means that the civil war perpetuates itself. And so the goal in Vienna is to see if with all the countries around the table, including Saudi Arabia and Turkey and Iran, and Russia, as well as the United States and other countries that have concerns about this, whether we can arrive at a political transition process that recognizes the need for a new government and can quell the fighting and bring about a ceasefire and allows all of us to refocus our attention on this barbaric organization that is killing so many people. Russia has not officially committed to a transition of Assad moving out. But they did agree to the political transition process. And I think we'll find out over the next several weeks whether or not we can bring about that change of perspective with the Russians. Keep in mind that we all have an interest in maintaining a Syrian state because we don't want complete chaos. I mean, and there are problems that we've seen in, for example, Lebanon, when the machinery of state entirely breaks down. So there's going to be a need for the international community and the United Nations to work in order to maintaining a Syrian state and be able to move forward with a political transition that's orderly. And that's going to be difficult, but that's what we have to focus on. In terms of the position of the United States and the other 65 members of the coalition, my view on Assad is it will not work to keep him in power. We can't stop the fighting. Even if I were to cynically say that my priority is ISIL and not removing Assad regardless of the terrible things that he's done to his people. The United States could not stop the fighting in Syria by those who are opposed to Assad's rule. And so this is a practical issue, not just a matter of conscience. And I think that there are a large number of members of this coalition including President Hollande, who agree with me on that. Michael Shear. Question, thank you, Mr. President. On a different topic, when you go to Paris next week for the climate talks, you do so in the shadow of what happened in that city a week ago. Could you talk a little bit about how you think those terror attacks might affect the talks? And substantively, on the talks, can you talk a little bit about concerns that the United States might not have the ability to convince poor countries that nations will help them pay for what? They need to do to achieve the climate talks, given especially the Republican opposition back home? And on one separate matter, could you comment on the investigations that we reported about in our paper this morning into whether or not intelligence officials are altering the assessments of the ISIL campaign to make them seem more rosy? President Obama, I'll take the last question first. One of the things I insisted on the day I walked into the Oval Office was that I don't want intelligence shaded by politics. I don't want it shaded by the desire to tell a feel-good story. We can't make good policy unless we've got good, accurate, hard-headed, clear-eyed intelligence. I believe that the Department of Defense and all those who head up our intelligence agencies understand that. And that I have made it repeatedly clear to all my top national security. Advisors that I never want them to hold back, even if the intelligence or their opinions about the intelligence. Their analysis or interpretations of the data contradict current policy. So that's a message that we've been adamant about from the start. I don't know what we'll discover with respect to what was going on at CENTCOM. I think that's something that's best left to the IG and the processes. I have communicated once again to both the chairman of the Joint Chiefs as well as Secretary Carter. That I expect that we get to the bottom of whether or not what you described has been happening. There are always going to be some disputes with respect to how to interpret facts on the ground. I get intelligence briefings every single day, and there are times where they're making their best judgments, they'll say. With moderate confidence, or low confidence, or high confidence, this is what we think is happening. There may be times where there are disputes internally among various intelligence agencies about that. But I don't know the details of this. What I do know is my expectation, which is the highest fidelity to facts, data, the truth.